We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Flugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our ever-growing channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. If you want to support this channel through a super chat donation, hit the $sign when you make a comment, and we'll get to your comment as soon as possible. Welcome into the studio that sits on the very corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid, PATC community. Do not be afraid to be a legend in the chat room with your comments and with your phone calls later in the show. Welcome in, everybody. It was a very bad day for Charlie Baker. It was a very bad day for the NCAA. Not good. Not good at all from their perspective. They're trying to save this current collegiate model. Don't think they're going to be able to do it. Do not think they're going to be able to do it. And we are officially on Harbaugh to Chargers watch. It begins now, right here in the PATC community, right here on this show. We declared it. Who gave us the power to do so? The fat guy from Minnesota. How about that? How about them apples? Today, right now, we are starting the Harbaugh to Chargers watch. Let's get into that right away because keep your head on a swivel. I don't think it's going to happen tonight. It probably will wait till tomorrow or Saturday. Maybe. Possibly. But the watch definitely begins now. Why do I say that? Well, been on the phone, been talking with some people. The Raiders situation that we thought Harbaugh was going to go to, the family, extended family, stepped in and said to the Davis, to the owner, no, Jim Harbaugh's not even going to get an interview. It seems like it, right? Harbaugh has interviewed with the Chargers, with the Falcons. Again, this is all NFL talk. We don't do much NFL talk here at College Football's Peek Around the Corner. But of course, this will affect the national champions, the Big Ten champions for 3 years in a row, the Michigan Wolverines. So of course we have to talk about it. And I wasn't going to touch this. We weren't going to talk about it until we were told the watch begins now. So that's the title of our show. We're going to go through the Harbaugh stuff first. And then we're going to go how that would affect Michigan. Who would be their candidates? Would they go national? Would they go to Sharon Moore, the offensive coordinator? I have my opinions, strongly held opinions on this. It's interesting. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Notre Dame fight and Irish situation of a couple years ago. I know that sounds strange. I know that Michigan Wolverine fans say, whoa, don't attach us to any situation of Notre Dame. And Notre Dame fans are saying the same thing in reverse. Do not attach us to anything that's going on in Michigan. It just reminds me, I think things might play out the same way. Give me a chance to explain. We're going to start with the Harbaugh stuff first. And then we're going to get into the bad day that Charlie Baker had and the NCAA. The Department of Justice is now in the fray. Ladies and gentlemen, they're going to have to go to the CBA. Collective bargain agreement is the only way through this. Are you listening, Charlie Baker? Are you listening, Tony Petitti? Are you listening, Greg Sankey, who does not want the student athletes to become employees at any cost? That's the only way through. We need an agreement. We need some structure in the game that we love, or it's going to get destroyed. And then the opportunities of all these student athletes, not just the football players, but student athletes across other sports, their opportunities are going to shrink some more. So we got to save this. And the only way through is CBA. I know a lot of you disagree with me. Go ahead, disagree with me in the chat. Give me a call later in the show. We're going to go through that. And then we're going to hit upon what I did. I did a Cloak and Dagger early peak episode on the situation that is going on in California, the California Bears, but I mainly focused on the UCLA Bruins. We all know, we've all heard it. We all heard it in the California Board of Regents. We all heard it when they're talking about the Calimony tax. We all heard about UCLA's money issues. It's going to get helped when they join the Big Ten, no question about it. They're going to start receiving that new media money July 1st, 2024. But UCLA has some serious money issues. They're going to have to get their financial house in order if they want to compete. Forget about just football, the basketball, the great basketball brand of the UCLA Bruins. They're going to have to get their house in order. We're going to touch upon that as well. So let's start out with the Harbaugh story. Why are we talking about it tonight? Greg, why did you get the phone call? Why did you title this live show Harbaugh to the Chargers Watch is officially begun? Why did you title that tonight? Why didn't you do that yesterday? Why didn't you do that the day before? Great, you're a little late on the take. Okay. We're not peek around the NFL corner. We're peek around the college football corner. But let me give you a couple of items on why this is our title for the show tonight. Let's start with this. I don't know, about 2 hours ago, 90 minutes ago. Let me check the time here. 2:02. Ooh, that's 3 hours ago. Excuse me. 3 hours ago, Los Angeles Chargers put a tweet out, a post. We've completed an interview with David Shaw for head coach. David Shaw for head coach. Now, we've all heard the Rooney Rule, correct? Where the NFL has to interview a minority candidate before they can officially hire anybody. And that now the readjusted Rooney Rule is you gotta interview that candidate in person, the minority candidate. But now they're readjusted it where it has to be 2 minority candidates for the Rooney Rule to be satisfied. According to reports out of Los Angeles, USA Today, I should say, the Chargers have now interviewed Harbaugh, Shaw, former Minnesota Vikings head coach Leslie Frazier, and former Arizona Cardinals head coach Steve Wilkes. So Chargers have interviewed Leslie Frazier and Shaw. So according to the Rooney Rule, even the new adjusted Rooney Rule, the Rooney Rule has been satisfied as of right now. And I got it, and I went and I just peeked in to I'm being alerted to something here. Yeah, I'm not going to go with that. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at Jim Harbaugh's coaching record. First of all, we're just going to take a look at his college record, collegiate record, right? Stanford, 4-8, 5-7, 8-5, 12-1. The last year coached at Stanford, right? 2010. Then he jumped on over to San Francisco from 2011, 2012, 2013, 14, 13-3, 11-4, 12-4, 8-8, 44-19 record. NFC champions in 2012. Then he goes back to Michigan, 10-3, 10-3, 8-5, 10-3, 9-4. The pandemic season of 2-4, 12-2. They won the Big Ten. 13-1. They won the Big Ten. 2023, 15-0. They won the Big Ten and they won the national championship. 29-21 at Stanford. 89-25 at Michigan. So obviously, to everybody who pays attention, anybody who watches college football, anybody who's paid attention to the NFL, Jim Harbaugh has been an absolute success when it comes to wins and losses. He's won everywhere he has been. There is no doubt about it. He went and interviewed for the Minnesota Vikings head coaching job. He didn't get it. He walked in there a couple years ago, and all the reports coming out of Minnesota, the Vikings, the newspapers here in Minnesota, all the reports, he walked in there like he owned the place. He walked in there like he was going to get handed over the job. He was not prepared. We're not getting those reports out of Los Angeles Chargers. I was peeping in. I listened to a little bit of a podcast, LA Chargers podcast, just a couple hours ago, after I got the phone call saying that Harbaugh is on Chargers. Harbaugh to Chargers watch has officially begun. I listened to the podcast, and it was earlier this morning. And the two Chargers beat writers were saying, yeah, this Harbaugh thing is going to happen. We think Harbaugh to Chargers is going to happen, but everyone's going to be disappointed because it's not going to happen by this weekend. Because there's no way, unless we are blinded by something, there's no way that the Chargers are going to have that second interview with the minority candidate to satisfy the Rooney Rule. They're not going to have it done by Thursday or Friday. And then the report came out that the Chargers interviewed David Shaw today. They released a statement. And they're also interviewed a guy named Ed Dobbs for the general manager position. And Ed Dobbs was with the Colts for many, many years. Supposedly Harbaugh and Dobbs know each other. That also happened. So there's more fire, more logs to the fire that Harbaugh Chargers, the watch, has officially begun. Now, let me steer this in the Michigan direction, because this is a college football YouTube channel. This reminds me of, Sherrone Moore. Incredible, successful offensive coordinator. There's no question that he's the chalk to get the job. He should get the job. He probably will get the job. He has to get the job. If Jim Harbaugh leaves to become the new head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers, Sherrone Moore, come on. He has to get the job. I mean, look what he did as a head coach. Look what he's done with developing players. Sherrone Moore, he should be the head coach of the Michigan Wolverines, in my opinion. There's a couple things I want to say about it. One is, it reminds me a little bit. Now, Jim Harbaugh, very successful. Incredibly successful. Just won the national championship. You saw J.J. McCarthy talked about him. There's some players that just love him, whatever. I'm sure they all love him because they just won a national championship. But Jim Harbaugh, he's a little odd. He's a little odd. Come on, Michigan Wolverine fans. He's a little odd. He's gotten in trouble, right? It reminds me of like Notre Dame and Brian Kelly. Yeah, the players liked him, had some success at Notre Dame. It's not quite the same because Brian Kelly did not win a national championship with Notre Dame. But the point I'm trying to make is when Notre Dame hired Marcus Freeman, that locker room was lit. The players grabbed him. They loved Marcus Freeman. They still do after a couple years. And I think Notre Dame is going to have a great team next year. I think they're going to the playoffs. But anyways, Marcus Freeman, there was a difference. I'm not saying that Marcus Freeman's as good as Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly's been doing this for a long time. Incredibly successful. Cincinnati, Notre Dame, LSU. He's probably going to have a real good third year if they figure out Nussmeier, the quarterback position. They just got in the best quarterback in high school. Whatever. I'm not saying that Marcus Freeman's at the level of Brian Kelly yet. But Marcus Freeman he's so beloved by his players. That is not in question. Sherrone Moore, to me, is the same cat. If this happens, if Jim Harbaugh goes to the Chargers, and today we're officially on Harbaugh to Chargers watch, officially right now, I got a feeling that if Sherrone Moore is hired, the place is going to get lit up. And I think he's going to have fun. Look, Michigan's going to take a step back next year, in my opinion. Like, we don't even know who the quarterback's going to be. We don't know who the head coach is going to be. The 30-day window opens up if Jim Harbaugh leaves. Michigan's probably not going to lose that many guys. It's not an Alabama situation. Sherrone Moore will probably do very well in retaining the talent that he has. A Sherrone Moore hire, it would be more beneficial short term than doing a national search. Than doing I just think Sherrone Moore is the guy. And I think he would be beloved. And I think he's got a chance to be an incredible, successful head coach. But what if Harbaugh does leave for the Chargers? Tonight, it's Harbaugh to Chargers. The watch has officially begun. Tonight. Not yesterday, not the day before. Today, the Chargers satisfied the Rooney Rule. The watch has begun right now. But what if Harbaugh goes to Los Angeles Chargers? And what if, I'm expecting the Michigan to do a little bit of a song and dance type of search, 3 days, 4 days, Sherrone Moore, bam. It's your team. I expect that to happen. It should happen. But what if it doesn't happen? What if Michigan does go to a national search? Which I don't believe is going to happen. But what if it does? What does that mean? Does it mean that they believe, that Ward Manuel believes, the athletic director of Michigan, that he believes that maybe, possibly, it could be that Sherrone Moore is going to get wrapped up in this in-person scouting scandal? All public reports so far say that Sherrone Moore is not a part of that scandal. Now, obviously, he should have known. Didn't he know about Connor Stalions barking in his ear, barking in the defensive cord? I think he did. But if there's no evidence, there's no evidence. All I'm saying is Sherrone Moore should be the guy. I think he's going to be an incredible head coach. I think he has the chance to be an incredible head coach. He should get the nod if Harbaugh leaves to Los Angeles Chargers. But if they open up a national search, to me, that's an indication of Manuel willing to go to bat for Harbaugh, but not willing to go to bat for anybody else. Plus, we have the situation with Jim Harbaugh and Manuel, the athletic director. They're negotiating, going back and forth on a new deal for Jim Harbaugh to stay at Michigan. All the money's being thrown at Jimbo, right? But Jim Harbaugh wants protection in that contract. He wants protection. He doesn't want to be fired for cause whatever gets brought up in this NCAA investigation. He wants protection. Why does Jim Harbaugh want protection? Because, well, part of the program was kind of stallions. Things were a little bit out of control. You got to admit that at the very least. So, does Manuel want to go in the same type of negotiations with Sherrone Moore if Sherrone Moore perception is that maybe he'll get tangled up in this in-person scouting? I'm throwing these things out. We got to start thinking about it because the Harbaugh, the Chargers watch has officially begun tonight. Officially, the Chargers can hire Jim Harbaugh tonight. Don't think it's going to happen tonight. It could during our show. Keep your head on a swivel. And Michigan is most cases, it would turn into a national search. Michigan's one of the best jobs in the country. One of the most valuable jobs in the country. One of the most valuable brands, the biggest brand, the most powerful brand in the country. A whole lot of top line tier 1 coaches would be most interested in interviewing for the Michigan job. But again, I think this particular time, winning a national championship, what Michigan's just went through, if Jim Harbaugh left, it's got to be Sherrone Moore. It has to be. He would light that locker room on fire. I think he would light up everybody on fire. I think he would light up the boosters on fire. Everybody would be willing to go to war again for the offensive coordinator, who had to be an interim head coach, remember, for a game of the first 3 games and the last 3 games of the regular season. I think Michigan would go to war for Sherrone Moore. And come on, he's got to be interested in the job, right? Now, I know a lot of you are thinking, well, Jim Harbaugh, he's still going to go back to Michigan. He's still going to go back to Michigan. Maybe you're right. Maybe you are correct. But man, he's been to 2 NFL interviews. I think he wants to scratch that itch. I think he's going to scratch that NFL itch one more time. I'm going to get to your comments. I'm going to say thank you for all you joining up at the start of our show. Thank you so much, PATC community. We're going to go into Charlie Baker's very bad day today up on Capitol Hill. And we're going to talk about a little bit about the UCLA issues, the money issues that the UCLA Bruins have. It's going to be a little bit solved by going to the Big Ten. It's going to be helped, no question about it. But they need to get their financial house in order. Let me thank everybody for coming on in. Laura Rice, Texas Tech Red Raider early peak member. Ryan Brooks is in the house. Tyler Brown, does Greg sleep? The moderator is not in the chat right now. The little general who rules with an iron fist is not in the chat. I do not sleep well. Let's just put it that way. Tumasta is in the house. San Diego Superchargers. Not quite. They're the Los Angeles Chargers. I keep wanting to say San Diego Chargers, however. Superchargers. Beautiful song. Stephen Clark, thanks for coming on in. Randy Taylor, bring the content. Struthers, better weather. John Teal, early peak members in the house. Mooncat is in the house. I love your passion as well, Mr. Mooncat. David Hackett, thank you so much. Appreciate the kind words. Early peak member David Hackett is in the house. Daniel Deal is in the house. Bill G, early peak member. Patrick Scott Frost in Michigan. In what role? What is Scott Frost doing right now? That's a good question. Is he being an assistant somewhere? Is he still sitting on a pile of cash that he's getting from Nebraska? More the new Michigan coach? If Harbaugh leaves, it's got to be Sharon Moore, right? Terry Fox is in the house. More Portal Mania on the way. Alabama still getting killed. Michigan about to lose some top grade talent. If they lose Harbaugh, they're going to lose somebody, right? But if Sharon Moore is hired, I feel that he's got a connection with this team. I think he can keep most, right? That's what I believe. Let me know if I'm wrong. Jared Jones is in the house. Mr. Buckeye. Stephen McNeely's in the house. Black Rain doesn't think Harbaugh is leaving Michigan. A lot of people out there still think that Harbaugh is just playing the field, putting leverage on Ward Manuel, the Michigan athletic director, not just going to one NFL interview, but going to a second interview, Atlanta. But he wants to scratch that itch. He wants to scratch that itch. He wants to scratch that itch. Ryan Brooks, early peak member, the effects of the Kings of cheating. Terry Fox is in the house. Connor is available. Connor Stallions. He is available. Abe is in the house. When Harbaugh leaves, will the same thing happen like Alabama? I don't think so. But again, Abe, it would depend on who Michigan hires. I think if they hire more, I think they keep most of that team intact. They're losing a lot of guys anyways to the NFL draft. But I think they keep most of them, right? Reminds me of Pete Carroll to Seahawks. Nothing but the facts. Thank you for coming on in. Early peak member Derek Marie. John Teal is in the house. More like when Pete left USC. Chad Bracey made it. I'm glad you made it. Old Duck Fan 1. Hello, Greg. Hello to you. Old Duck Anthony Carlson. Anthony Carlson, would you take the L if Harbaugh stay? Absolutely. Absolutely, I will. Absolutely. I would take the big, fat L. Jesse Minter, most likely Michigan. Interesting. I think it's going to be Sharon Moore. Interesting. Going to defensive coordinator instead of the offensive coordinator. Congo is Moore or Minter. Moore or Minter. Daniel Kopcha says the best thing for the Wolverines may be elevating Moore if Harbaugh leaves. I think you are correct. Illini Ted. The Bears are interviewing Cliff Kingsbury for the offensive coordinator. He is the current quarterback coach at USC. It would make sense if they are planning to take Caleb Williams, number one, instead of trading back. Interesting, Illini Ted. Now, did Caleb Williams, he said something negative about some NFL franchise, but I don't remember who it was. I wasn't paying that close attention. Was it about the Bears or was it about somebody else? Caleb Williams said something negative about some franchise, but I did not catch who it was. Expedition Greg, Mr. Buckeye. I'm also on Caleb Downs, Caden Proctor watch for the Buckeyes. Both of those are very intriguing. Both of them had a great freshman season. Proctor can play tackle anybody's team. And Caleb Downs was sensational in his true freshman season at strong safety. Not an easy position to play as a true freshman. It's not. So, where's Caleb Downs going? Proctor, I think the chalk is Iowa. Then I think we're probably looking at Ohio State after that. Caleb Downs, Buckeyes, or the Bulldogs of Georgia. Summit Hawk, rumors of Raiders interested in Kingsbury, too. Rock and Rand is in the house. Early peak member. Scott Frost is, well, having some fun, according to Rock and Rand. John D., on a side note, heard anything from your Clemson sources? Not in the last 48 hours. Nothing has changed. We haven't heard anything different. Now, of course, yesterday, the situation where the ACC added their complaints against Florida State. That was a shot across the bow. Shot across the bow of Clemson. I forget the gentleman's name. I apologize. John D., if you want to put his name in the chat, that's fine. But a great state of Florida. Well, actually, he's in Atlanta, Georgia. But a Florida State alum practicing law in Georgia. He was on the Big 12 Mafia show. I know he's been on with Renegade, Florida State YouTube channel with Jen, Mrs. Seminole. This lawyer, I believe his name is Ron, maybe? Jeez, I'm sorry, I forget. But anyways, he was on the show with Nathan Brown, Mo and Vision, Immaculate, Jen, and he answered the question. I asked the question in the chat, do you consider what the ACC did in adding those complaints, talking about suing for damages, and everything that the ACC did last night? I asked the lawyer that was on the Big 12 Mafia show last night in the chat, I said, do you consider that a shot across the bow of Clemson and other schools looking to jump into the fray, looking to file a lawsuit against the ACC? And the lawyer answered, absolutely. He considered that a defensive move by the ACC, in part to stop, a lot of different parts to it, but one of the parts to stop more ACC schools from jumping into the fray. If you are looking for an injunction, if you are going to the courts and saying, give me a ruling, this is what the ACC is doing, give me a quick ruling that Florida State cannot participate, cannot vote in ACC affairs. If you're doing that, that's the shot across the bow of Clemson. The ACC has winter meetings, February 15th. What is Florida State going to do in those winter meetings? ACC probably wants a ruling on that claim before February 15th. Does this make it more difficult for Clemson to pull the trigger internally? We're trying to find that answer. We haven't gotten anywhere yet. Nowhere on that. But that is something that we are poking and prodding here and peek around the corner. Does that change Clemson's take, their plan on what they're going to do? It would be, I would say this before we go on here. I would say, from what we have heard, from what we've been told by the Florida State Money Perch, Clemson and Florida State have been close in this. They knew each other's arguments. They've worked on this. Not totally together, but they knew each other's game plan. One knew about Florida State going to do it in the first quarter of 2024. They didn't. They did it 9 days before the first quarter of 2024. But it was close enough. Florida State had the perception that Clemson was going to put their flag in the ground somewhere third, fourth week in January, first week in February. We reported that a couple months ago. It is very, how do I say this? It would be, by the way, Clemson and North Carolina have had a lot of communication as well. It would be very, very awkward. It would be very awkward, from our opinion here at Peek Around the Corner, if there was some sort of, I don't know how it all works. I don't even know if it's possible. But there is some quick ruling by a judge, Mecklenburg County. Don't know if it's possible, so please just tell me I'm wrong. Don't pile on me here. But let's say there's some quick ruling by a judge, Mecklenburg County, and somehow Florida State, before the February 15th meeting, winter meeting, that they could not be involved in those discussions. Don't have any voting rights anymore in the winter meetings. Let's say it happens before the winter meetings start, ACC winter meetings, February 15th. So Florida State can't participate, but Clemson can. That Clemson hasn't pulled the trigger yet. It's a very awkward situation. It's, anyways, I'm just going to table it. We're poking and prodding. We're looking for more information. We're looking to see if Clemson has changed their game plan. They got a shot across the bow. It's more risky now for Clemson. Do they want to be? Anyways, we'll see what happens. We'll find out. Hopefully more by tomorrow. But we do not have any new information to share as of tonight. Don Scruggs. Greg, I'm your number one SEC fan. Thank you, Mr. Scruggs. I appreciate it. Does Moore want the job? Good question. Good question. But yeah, he wants the job. These guys are so competitive. You do not become the offensive coordinator of the Michigan Wolverines. You do not become the offensive coordinator of the three-time Big Ten champions. You do not become the offensive coordinator of the national champions, the Michigan Wolverines, and not want a head coaching job, particularly at Ann Arbor, at the big house, 110,000 fans. Holy smokes. I think so. Thanks for coming on in. Appreciate it, AMAC. Bob Husley's in the house. Summit Hawk. I know Clemson fans don't want this, but I love them in the Big 12. Thank you for coming in. Comment on in, Summit Hawk. I appreciate it. Anthony Palika is in the house. Anthony Palika is in the house. I wish this process at Michigan would happen faster. Caleb don't want the Bears. Okay, so he did say that. Doesn't want to go to the Bears. I don't know why these quarterbacks. Why aren't these guys coached better in, I don't know. I don't think he should have said that. He said they should keep Justin Fields. Greg, you should buy the Colts with all your YouTube money. Yeah, right. Yeah. Now, Dan Montcastle, the Colts assistant general manager, or whatever his name is, Ed Dobbs, he has interviewed with the Chargers. And I'm assuming, I think I was told that Dobbs and Harbaugh have some sort of relationship. Right? I think so. I'm not sure. Let me know if I'm wrong on that. LG is in the house. Tony, Tough Tony, the jug will be ours. Holy smokes. Oh my God. Doug Rohan. Yeah, thank you so much. Doug Rohan. I apologize, Doug. I'm horrible with names if you're watching the show. I'm a complete idiot. But Doug Rohan did say Thank you, Coy. Early peak member Coy. Doug Rohan did say on the Big 12 Mafia show last night that yes, absolutely, that's how he said it. It was a shot across the bow of Clemson, what the ACC did. So, does that slow up Clemson? Does it stop Clemson? Was Clemson stopping anyways before that? I don't think so. But a lot of people might argue they were. We don't think so. We haven't heard anything different. Hopefully we'll have more information soon on it. We're trying, I can tell you that. We are trying. Anyways, hit the like button. Absolutely. Harbaugh played for the Colts. Captain, come back. Okay. All right. So Harbaugh, the watch is on. The watch is on. Harbaugh to the Chargers. Gonna happen tonight? Gonna happen during this live show? Probably not. But it's on. They have fulfilled the Rooney Rule. The Chargers. They have everything looks like it's going that way. The Chargers are the favorites. In fact, there was a Las Vegas sports book. I can't tell you the name of it. They took down the odds. They took it down. Harbaugh to Chargers. They took it down because it became too much of a favorite today. Okay, let's go take a look. And now the Michigan fans, if they lose Harbaugh, they're going to be mad at Ward Manuel. He's offered Jim Harbaugh a lot of money. I think Harbaugh wants to scratch the itch. We're going to find out soon enough. Let's take a look at this. We talked about it, and then we're going to get to your phone calls, okay? We're going to get to everybody's phone calls, chats. Okay. Let's take a look. Bad day. Bad day. For Charlie Baker, the NCAA, fixing NCAA's problems doesn't appear to be at the forefront for U.S. Congress. These are big, thorny, tough issues. This is Ross Dellinger's article of a couple hours ago, Yahoo Sports. Minutes after the completion of the 11th congressional hearing on college athletics, the event's two-star witnesses, the president of the NCAA, Charlie Baker, and UCLA quarterback Chase Griffin, shook hands, exchanged pleasantries, posed for a photograph. The two men, each having espoused drastically different views on the future of college athletics, came together fittingly within the marble walls of the Capitol Hill, where disagreements among lawmakers usually devolve into divisive spats. I'm not going to go through the whole article. I just wanted to point out a couple things. It's hard. Now, this is after the 3.5 hours Capitol hearing on college athletics. This is what Lori Tehran said of Massachusetts. It's hard to imagine this Congress getting to an agreement on antitrust exemption and unemployment. I think this hearing surfaced that there is a wide gap between where we are and where we need to go to get to consensus, not just here in the House, but also in the Senate. This Congress just doesn't seem like the Congress where we're going to have a lot of bipartisan wins. These are big, thorny, tough issues. I'm not optimistic that it's going to be a Congress where we can figure out college athletics at large. Okay, we're not going to go through the whole article. You guys know the story. We've been through this before. They had a big, long hearing on Capitol Hill. They cannot get a carve-out. They cannot get Congress to act. This is, how many meetings has this been? It's just not going to happen. I know Cory Booker and Ted Cruz are working together on it. It's going to need a miracle shot. That's going to absolutely need a miracle for them to produce a bill that can pass the Senate, then the House, then they can come together, then it goes to the president, whatever. The Department of Justice today join 10 other states in the lawsuit, basically stating, no, you cannot infringe upon a student athlete's ability to change, to transfer from one institution to another. You cannot take away that student athlete's opportunities, academic opportunities, just like you wouldn't take that away from a student if they qualified, right? To transfer to another college, whatever. The Department of Justice has now entered the fray. The NCAA is not, it doesn't have any legitimacy in front of the courts, in front of Congress, in front of the executive branch, the Department of Justice. And that's why we did another episode today, episode 361, stating simply, the only way through this, and we talked about it on episode 1 of this college football YouTube channel, our manifesto, episode number 1. The only way through this is collective bargaining agreement. Have the student athletes be represented by union, by some organization. I don't care at this point. Have them represented at the negotiation table versus some governing body or the conference representing the schools. Have a CBA where the students sign something. They get protection, but the game of college football also gets protected. In other words, roster management, some competitive playing field, some structure, because the product of college football is competition. That is what's being sold. That's what's being bought by all of us. We love the history. We love the pageantry. We love the competition of college football. That has to be protected too. The golden goose who's laying the golden eggs has to be protected as well. The student athletes and the game. Collective bargain agreement. Hammer it out on the table. Get some security for the schools, for the programs, for the coaches. Get some security for the student athletes. Get them higher compensation. It's got to happen. In other words, student athletes have to become employees of the university. I don't know. Of the athletic department. I don't know. Of the conference. I don't know. A combination of all three. I don't know. I don't care. I really don't care at this point. Get it done. Get it done. Charlie Baker's against it. Greg Sankey is against it. Tony Petitti, so far, what he's talked about, he's against it. Everybody's against it. But it's the only way through, in my opinion. I know a lot of people disagree with me. Let me know in the chat with the phone calls later in the show. Now, one more thing, and then we'll get to your comments and phone calls. We talked about this. I'm not going to go through the whole article. But the UCLA Bruins going into the Big Ten, right? They're going to be a fully invested Big Ten school. They're going to own their own slice of the Big Ten network. Year one, USC and UCLA. That's never been done before. Okay? When the Big Ten Network was created, for those who don't know, each Big Ten member owns their own slice of the Big Ten Network. Okay? But the first 5 or 6 years of the original 11 teams that were that were created the Big Ten Network, none of them got the full slice that they were supposed to get from the Big Ten Network. They all, whatever money they had to give to the Big Ten. Whatever money was created by the Big Ten Network, third tier content that had to be going back to the Big Ten to be given to Fox Sports, because Fox Sports was the sugar daddy. They created the Big Ten. They put the money in. The Big Ten had to pay Fox Sports back. It took 5 or 6 years of Illinois, Purdue, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, all 11 Big Ten teams at the time. They took no third tier money. No third tier media money, I should say. It all went back to Fox Sports. When Maryland and Rutgers was added, remember all those reports? Oh, they're not getting a full share. They're not fully invested. Because the original 11, Nebraska did the same thing, by the way. Nebraska, Rutgers, and Maryland. Those 3 schools did not get full payouts for 5 or 6 years because they also had to pay in. But UCLA and USC was different. And we talked about it when we were breaking the news during the spring and early summer of 2022. We said, we told the nation, USC called the Big Ten. We told everybody that USC had great leverage over these negotiations. Hardly anybody was listening to us. Daniel Montcastle was, a few other people were, but a lot of people were not paying attention. USC and UCLA they got the deal. They're fully invested member of the Big Ten Network. And they're going to get the whole enchilada. Tier 1 media money, they're getting the whole thing. So whatever the Ohio State Buckeyes are getting, whatever Penn State, Minnesota, whatever Northwestern, whatever we're getting in media money, we got it at this last year, but this year, year 2 of the media deal, UCLA and USC are getting the same amount of money. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 media money. And UCLA is going to need every single drop of that cash. UCLA and California, combined deficit of more than $80 million when you remove the central campus support. Okay, we're gonna skip over the California part. For the fiscal year ending in June 30, 2023, the Bruins reported revenues of $105.4 million. By the way, Florida State, they just reported $172 million, something like that. I might be out by half a million or $1 million. The UCLA Bruins, $105 million of expenses of $142 million. And UCLA only receives a couple $1 million from support of their university. California receives a whole bunch more. Okay, that's all the part I'm going to show you. I do a deep dive in early peak member episode. But I just wanted to point that out because we talk about this new subdivision that's going to be created, possibly, by January. Okay? The new NIL deal and paying players and all that could happen this August. Direct payment through a trust fund, NIL, the new NIL stuff, that could happen this August. That's when they're going to finally vote implementation. That it could happen as soon as August. The subdivision, where you opt in or opt out, where if you opt into the new subdivision, you're going to have to pay student athletes $30,000 or more. How it's written today. It might change. It might go up, it might go down, but right now, $30,000 or more for at least half of your student athletes that are under scholarship within your athletic program. For UCLA, in this article, it's estimated that UCLA is going to have to fork over another $10 million if they want to opt in to this new subdivision. if and when it happens, and I think it will happen. And then you got the calimony tax. Remember, for UCLA to leave to go to the Big Ten, the California Board of Regents, they put a California tax. We call it calimony tax on the UCLA, and it's going to be between $2 and $10 million a year. And UCLA is already hemorrhaging. It's already bleeding out. So they need this new Big Ten media money just to get into the opt-in to the new subdivision, to pay their calimony tax, to pay student athletes. They have a beautiful brand of basketball. Their basketball brand is still big in Westwood. But with direct payments going to student athletes, UCLA is going to have to bring in the cash. How are they going to build a trust fund? How is UCLA going to build a trust fund to compete in the Big Ten if there are $30 million deficit every year? That's going to get closed up with the new media contract. But what left is there going to be for UCLA to compete? I just want to bring that up as well. It's tough time for the Bruins. It should get a little bit better. It should get a lot better going in the Big Ten. But they're going to need money to compete. Things are going to have to change in UCLA. They're going to have to start bringing people into the football stadium. They're going to have bigger attendance in the Rose Bowl, being in the Big Ten. There's going to be a lot of people traveling from the Midwest. Me and the wife, the little general, we're planning on it. October 12th to the Rose Bowl, Minnesota at UCLA. A lot of people are planning on it. UCLA's attendance numbers will go up. No question about that, playing in the Big Ten. Okay, I'm going to get to your comments. We're going to open up the phone lines here. Going to open up the phone lines. Talking about a lot of things. But the main story tonight, we are officially on Jim Harbaugh to Chargers watch, because the Chargers today have met the Rooney Rule. They have done it. They've interviewed in person 2 minority candidates. Leslie Frazier a couple days ago and David Shaw today. So now they can announce they're hired. Be it David Shaw, be it Leslie Frazier, be it somebody else, be it Jim Harbaugh. It can happen tonight, can happen tomorrow. Harbaugh, the Chargers watch is on. Chargers interviewed a general manager. Sounds like people are saying that Jim Harbaugh would be interested in working with, and Ed Dobbs. And then if Jim Harbaugh leaves, it's got to be Sharon Moore, right? The great offensive coordinator of Michigan. It's got to be him. In this day and age where there's a portal window that opens up, 30-day portal window, Sharon Moore can keep that team united. The guys that are coming back, he can keep them on board. I think he would be just like with Marcus Freeman when he was hired, when Brian Kelly left and Notre Dame hired Marcus Freeman. That roster was lit. They loved Marcus Freeman. This roster in Michigan, they love Sharon Moore. So give me your opinion. And phone lines are open. Give me a call, 763-260-1333. That UCLA Minnesota game, most of the stadium will be Golden Gophers. Yes. Yeah. Casey Wasserman. He has stepped up in the past, Cornelius. I don't know what I should say about that. Yes, we do know. We at Peek Around the Corner, we do know. I mean, we don't personally know. How do I say this? Um, Let me put it this way. When I talk about BTM and his associates, BTM is short for the Big Ten man. These are a group of people who were vital in having me break many stories in the past and still today. Although our Rolodex has expanded, BTM and his associates. Some of those associates may or may not talk to Casey Wasserman. So, yes, that's all I'm going to say. UCLA donors better step up, namely Casey Wasserman. All right, I'm just going to let that go. I'm not going to go any further with that. Any Greg, if you come down to Los Angeles, let me know so I can treat you to a Diet Coke and lunch for all the great stories you put out. Thank you, Annie. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. David Shaw should be a head coach somewhere in college. I think he can build a G5 team up very well. I think he should be a head coach in the NFL. I don't see why he wouldn't be. How are these schools so inept that they have deficit of $80 million? Boy, there's a lot that go into that. Now, Summit Hawk and everybody else with that same question. If the USA Today is going to be coming out in the spring, they do it every springtime. They come out with the record of all the FBS schools and how much money they made, revenue and expenses. And you're going to be able to, on digital, on your computer, you're going to be able to go into each one of those athletic departments and look where the revenue comes from. And then you're going to be able to go and look at where all the expenses go to. For schools like California, Berkeley, like UCLA, their ticket sales are way down. People would be shocked to see the ticket sales for Pac-12 basketball. It doesn't even compare to Big Ten basketball. And then the football, the pricing of it, and then the expense of putting on even a football game in California, Los Angeles. It's expensive. The sponsorship money, they do not get the sponsorship money. And in that article, John Wilner's article that we went through in the early peak member, Cloak and Dagger membership video, talks about the sponsorship money has hit the floor. There's a lot of things that go into it. It's a professional market. Same thing with Minneapolis, by the way. Minnesota, like we are the Big Ten school that's like the state is professional league. It's a professional state besides college hockey, but it's professional. So it's very hard to bring in sponsorship money for a collegiate program in these professional cities and towns. And then it talks about UCLA, it talks about California. And then, of course, they have all these other payments for the Pac-12. The Pac-12 overpaid Comcast. No, I mean, Comcast overpaid the Pac-12 schools. And so that has to get paid back to Comcast. So these Pac-12 schools owe on that. A whole bunch of reasons why. But they are bleeding out. $105 million was their total revenue. That's real low. In this day and age, to run, UCLA runs a whole bunch of different sports. They spend a lot of money on non-revenue programs, right? There's a lot of sports at UCLA that don't bring the money in, but they invest heavily in those programs. Jamie Thornton, Fox Sports put out a list of the top 25 schools who make the most revenue. If you count the Pac-12 schools going in the Big Ten, in Texas and Oklahoma in the SEC, it's 12 SEC, 10 Big Ten, plus Notre Dame, Florida State, and Clemson. Yeah, me and Jamie talked about that on X. And of course, that revenue is only going to grow because the revenue gap, because all the reported revenue that's just starting to leak out, right? The last couple of days, and it's going to leak out until the springtime when all the teams' reported revenues come in. None of the Big Ten schools' revenue has been affected yet by the Big Ten media contract, because the revenues that you see in 2024, spring of 2024, that has to do with July 1st of 2022 to, no, something like June 30th or July 1st of 2022 to June 30th, July 1st of 2023. It's in that time period that you're seeing the revenue in the spring of 2024. So basically, the new media contract for the Big Ten, and of course the SEC, which hasn't even started yet, that starts this July. None of that new money is even included in these revenue numbers. So just look at the stands for UCLA and California games. And it's not just football, it's other sports as well. That's the scary thing. Are ticket sales lower than Miami's? That's a good question. You know what? I could go. Give me a moment here. If y'all give me a moment, I might be able to look into this here. Hold on. Okay, I'll show it to you. I'll pop it up here. Hold on, everybody. Hold on. Good grief! I can't even find Miami on the list. Oh, Miami's a private school. It won't be on this list. I cannot compare Miami. Okay. Let's see here. Hopefully you can see this. So this is UCLA, 2022. Total revenues, $103 million. Now, you're going to see that it's $105 million in the spring of 2024. So, but last year's reporting for 2000, things get reported in the spring, but it's back a year plus some, okay? So the spring of 2023 reported the numbers of 2022. But anyways, $103 million. Ticket sales, $17 million. Contributions, $18 million. Rights and licensing, $56 million. This has to do with your media money that you get, and then licensing deals that you get, like stadium signage, everything else that gets populated into this column. Student fees, $2,500,000. This is basically what you call institutional help, right? $2 million, a little bit over $2 million. Others, $8 million. School funds, $60,000. That doesn't make sense. So it's $103 million. Okay, that's UCLA. Contributions, that's really low, guys. That is really low. That is really, really low for a Pac-12. UCLA, they just don't get the money. $56 million. Remember those numbers. Remember those numbers. I'm going to compare it to somebody else here. Who should I compare it to? We'll compare it to Iowa. Okay? Let's compare it to Iowa. Iowa, 2022, 151 million. Ticket sales, 26 million instead of 17 from UCLA. 32 million instead of 18 million in contributions, UCLA. Rights and licensing, 76 million instead of 56 million from UCLA. And then they don't have the $2 million from student fees, others. So that's the difference. Iowa, UCLA just is not keeping up. Not keeping up in the revenue department. It's costly. And then we're going to have all these new subdivision. These lawsuits are coming in. NCAA versus the House. Schools are going to have to come up with money. Yeah. Yeah, I cannot check on Miami because it doesn't get reported in public. Because it's a private institution. Same thing with Northwestern, same thing with USC. And a lot of schools are paying debts off. Yep. Okay, so UCLA just spent $200 million. I know the University of Minnesota, we have well over $200 million in debt. We're going to be paying on that football stadium and the athletic village. We don't have much left on the athletic village. We only had to borrow like 20, 30 million. But the football stadium, that's still over 200 million. And pretty much everybody has debt, right? And they pay on it. This is why a lot of times when you see a school make, let's say, $134,569,000, $134,569,000. Then you see the expense, it's $134,569,000. Oftentimes you see the expense number being the exact same thing as the total revenue number. The reason that is because whatever money that they got left over, they pay extra on their debt. Whatever money they got left over, they want to pay off their debt early. They get ahead of schedule. Everybody does this. Very rarely will you see a university, sometimes they do, some of these universities, Ohio State, Michigan, the big ones, they'll come out and say, we made $31 million this year. Just ridiculous numbers. Absolutely ridiculous. But most of the schools, we're paying out every dime we come in. The last dollars get extra putting down on the long-term debt that a lot of teams have. That's why you see that. That's why most of the times you see expenses line up perfectly with revenue each and every year. Good evening, Minnesota Seminoles. If you think UCLA is bad, check out California. Yeah. Phone lines are open, 763-260-1333. Greg, did you see the article on the Gophers athletic director saying it's time to renovate Williams Arena and the pavilion? Yes. For most people in the chat, you're not Gopher fans. You're not. I'm going to show you guys something.
Call from
Ryan Thomas.
Ryan Thomas, the floor is yours. What do you got to say?
Well, Greg, it seemed like you're in need of someone to besmirch the Badgers, so I'm
Yes.
trying to fill that obligation.
Go ahead and besmirch. Can you hold on just 1 second, though?
Go ahead.
I just want to finish this. Williams Arena. For those who don't know, it's the basketball arena. I'm trying to get the exact date of when it was built. It broke ground, Williams Arena, it broke ground on May 10th, 1927. It opened February 4th, 1928. So Williams Arena is called the Barn. It's almost been in existence for 100 years. So, Tony, let me say this. Renovate it? Yes. Go ahead. It's the Barn. It's old. It is very old. But there's also talk, Tony, about tearing it down and building a new arena. And if that happens, the fat guy from Minnesota is going to waddle out of this studio with pitchfork in hand. I'm going to march down to the University of Minnesota West Bank campus, and they're going to have issues with me. They cannot tear that down. Are you kidding me? That is history. Okay, the floor is yours, sir. Go ahead.
Love it, Greg. Love it. I was actually giving some thought to this. So if you remember last night, I called in and I talked about, it seems like the ACC is going to the mat on this.
Yeah.
And, I mean, if you stop and think about it, I think there's some real cloak and dagger going on here within the ACC. And I think Phillips may not realize it, or he might realize it. But, you know, if you're an ACC university other than Florida State, you have every incentive to take this to court for two reasons. And I'm talking about your Virginia Techs or your NC States or your Pitts or your Louisvilles, like basically everyone other than Wake Forest, Boston College, Syracuse, and Duke. You have every incentive to encourage Phillips to take this all the way to the courts and to reject any settlement. The reason why is if you win, you're in no worse off financial situation. If you lose, you get out of the grower basically fee-free. You get out for free, and you're making money in either the SEC, Big 10, or Big 12. And if you're in the Big 12, you're no worse off than you are now. So, I mean, when you think about it, I mean, there might be some double dealing going on here. You know, I think there might be some ulterior motives on behalf of the ACC presidents. Mm-hmm. I mean, but I was just realizing that, you know, if you take it to the mat, if you win, then at least you know the exit amount because there's going to be some sort of ruling on what that amount will be. So either way, either get out for free or you know how much it's going to take to get out. And, I mean, you know, and they're no worse off financially. So that might be actually what I think is happening, which is why I say I think this is why I said last night, I think this is on its way to a total and complete implosion. So go ahead, sir.
Well, I listened to Doug Rohan I hope I'm saying his name correctly, on Big 12 Mafia
Yeah,
show
yeah.
last night.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting, the take that I didn't really consider that was brought up on that show, and I'm sure it was brought up on my show, but me being such a dingbat, I probably did not understand what was being told to me. But the sense that, how do I say this? Okay, well, Doug Rohan said it a whole lot better than I'm going to say it now. So, Ryan, you're going to have to pick up, what? You're going to have to pick up the pieces here in what I say, and then you're going to have to explain it better, okay? So
I'll do my best, Greg.
Yeah,
so
yeah, I know. Because when I drop something, there's a whole lot of pieces for you to pick up. But think of it this way. Rohan brought this up, Doug, last night. The fact that the fact that the ACC is asking for a judgment, an injunction, right? To say that Florida State is not able to participate in ACC talks, discussions, not able to vote on the issues, okay? That could mean, and this kind of startled me when I heard this last night, but that could mean, ladies and gentlemen, let's say they do get that injunction or whatever you want to call it. Well, the judges, they're not going to want to have Florida State subjugated. That's a word I'm stealing from Doug Rohan. They're not going to have Florida State subjugated under ACC for a long term. If they can't participate, if they cannot vote,
they're gonna want to get them out. Yeah, they're gonna want to get them out ASAP.
Or not get them out, not necessarily get them out, but what the judges will do is get this thing going, get a resolution. Either the gore is validated, it's too much money for Florida, whatever the final thing is, they're going to want to speed this up. If that injunction or whatever the real name of it is, if they get this thing done, if the ACC gets what they want, that Florida State can't participate or vote in an ACC talks and discussions, if they get that, then the judges are going to look like, well, the Florida State can't be subjugated like this for a long period of time, sort of what happened to Pac-12. So in other words, I might be taking a leap too far here. So pull me back if I'm taking a leap too far. But in other words, this might be the ACC's way, knowing that the judges wouldn't want to subjugate Florida State long-term to the ACC not being able to participate or vote on it. This is maybe an ACC's way to get this thing going, to get a ruling, to see where it all lies, her sooner rather than later. Ryan, go ahead and pick up the pieces. I'm sure I dropped a whole bunch of things. Good luck. The floor is yours.
No, I don't disagree. Certainly nobody wants us hanging around forever, and it's kind of pushing to a final resolution. But I mean, I think this is more, and I just get the gut feeling, Greg. The more and more I look at this, I get this gut feeling that it's either going to be all or nothing. And, I think we're about to see some major, right now the PATC theater, Holy Smokes Theater, we're moving into some Shakespearean dramas here. We may have had, the Pac-12 was like Hamlet. There was some bloodshed and backstabbing and double dealing. But, the ACC is going to be like Macbeth. There's going to be murder and stabbing all over the place, Greg. This is not for kids. I think, I really think that this thing is headed for, and it will be quick, but I think we could see something this summer where we have a pretty good feeling. We'll probably have a pretty good feeling by this summer where it's going, and actually kind of, it goes in line with sort of what Immaculate's been speaking before is, before the CFP for 2027 and beyond happens, they want some resolution to all this conference realignment stuff so they can know what they're dealing with. So, I mean, we just might get it. Just might get it. That's speculation on my part.
The only thing that I'm kind of not the only thing, one of the many things I'm confused on, but one of the items of this that I would like an answer on is how fast could we be looking at these amended complaints where the ACC is basically saying we don't want Florida State participating. They shouldn't have voting powers. Could we see a separate judge ruling on this really quick? Could we see it before February 15th winter meetings? Or is this something that's going to play out for 3 months? How does that work? I'm not asking for you to have the answer, Ryan. I'm just throwing that question out.
Yeah, I mean, I do not litigate for a living, and I don't know all the rules in North Carolina and Florida. I mean, so I'm going to have to, defer to Doug and others who are more familiar with those, for those provisions. I don't think you can. I mean, certainly, it all just depends on the court, the docket, and what the judge feels or thinks, and we'll see. I basically my long-winded answer. Like a badger that's sitting there eating too much and being a nuisance. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that, I think that this is going to be very interesting, but I do think this, the ACC, I wouldn't say conspiracy, but I think the universe is lining up for this to all get settled because, you got the NCAA convention that went on. You have, Baker's proposal. You have all the things going on with how to deal with the student athletes and NIL and, trust funds and collectives and all that, all that complicated stuff. And, I certainly think that these folks are going to want that all figured out to have some sort of stability to base the next CFP contract on. I mean, you even heard the rumor that there was some discussion about even just extending it a couple of years. And, I speculated maybe that's just to buy time to get this sorted out. But, I mean, there's a whole bunch of different pieces working together, to kind of accelerate consolidation. As far as what happens with the G5, I don't know. That there could be consolidation. There could be Oregon State, Washington, accept back Cal and Stanford and maybe SMU and go get themselves a Tulane and, like you said, build themselves at least an 8-team conference. But I think they're going to have a lot more than 8 to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think I think it depends on what happens. But if the ACC gets picked apart. You could see some of them going with the Ivies. You can see some of them going with the SEC and Big Ten and Big 12, and some of them might come with some other, the rest of the better AAC teams with, Cal, Stanford, Oregon State, and Washington State, and kind of form that fourth conference, sort of the rest of everything. So. It's fascinating, and if I knew the answer, Greg,
yeah.
I'd be Ryan the Heater. But right now, I'm Ryan the Freezer.
Got it.
You're Greg the Heater, but I'm Ryan the Freezer. So don't take bets on me. But thanks for the show, Greg. Keep up the good work. I'm gonna let other people get calling and give their much more coherent thoughts than mine. So take care, buddy.
Appreciate it, Ryan. Great call. Thank you, sir. Marcus William, thank you so much for the super chat, your continued generosity to this channel. Thank you so much. When it's all said and done, Greg, who do you think comes to the Big Ten from the ACC implosion? And who do you think goes to the SEC, Marcus? I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I do not know. I try to keep my speculation down because people sometimes take my speculation and say, Greg reported this and da-da-da-da-da. What I will say, what I feel comfortable in saying right now is Florida State, the chalk with the favorite that they would go to the Big Ten. But I do not believe the door is shut on the SEC for Florida State. They're going to have their options. But I think the chalk is the Big Ten. And I think North Carolina is leaning the SEC. But the door is not closed on the Big Ten. I'm being very cautious here, Marcus. I have to. There has been no lack of third-party communications between Clemson and North Carolina, Clemson and Florida State. People giving their honest valuations of Florida State and Clemson when it comes to those who would know in the industry what their valuations are in regards to certain options that there might be before them in the future. I'm trying to make it so I don't. Anyways, this thing is so determined on so many things that happen. There is so many variables to this, Marcus, that it is just the North Carolina piece. Are they going to be tied to North Carolina State? Is that proposal going to pass? Is there going to be some change? Is the interim chancellor going to stay? Is he going to be the permanent chancellor? Is there going to be some moves in the board of governors, the UNC system president, Peter Hans? There's so many things going on at University of North Carolina, and that's just one component. Then you have the Virginia Tech, Virginia component. And then, of course, the biggest component of it all is Florida State. How much would it cost for them to get out? And is it worth the other schools that might have a landing spot to go through the process? And therefore, the only thing I feel comfortable in saying is Big Ten is the chalk for Florida State. In North Carolina leans right now to the SEC. That's it. In Miami, the University of Miami, the market is, even though they don't, the stadium issues, the fan intensity is not there, everything else negative about Miami, the market of Miami. The market still is important. And so Miami is going to be, there's going to be interest in the Miami Hurricanes as well. So that's all I can say. But thank you so much for your super chat. I appreciate it. Like Ted Evans says, it's coming down to a settlement. Ryan Thomas thinks it's all or nothing. Jen, Mrs. Seminole is in the chat. Clemson is way more valuable, and yes, Fox wants Miami, but not in the first round. Jen, my question to you, if you're still in the chat, is Doug Rohan, he said on the Big 12 Mafia show, Jen, in regards to the ACC filing more of those complaints, they did this, but the judges wouldn't want to subjugate Florida State under the ACC for a long period of time if they did not have voting rights, if they could not participate in talks. Jen, did you get information from Doug Rohan on that show or other shows that you do? How soon could that ruling be handed down? For example, could there be a decision made by a judge separately on just that complaint alone saying, yes, Florida State does not have voting rights, cannot participate? Could that be something that could be decided in the next couple weeks, in the next month? Or is that like everything else that's in the complaint? Jen, I hope you're still there, and I hope you understand my question. You can give us a call or try to answer it in the chat. Yes, Chargers did interview David Shaw. And so they have completed the Rooney Rule. The Chargers have interviewed 2 minority coaches. One of the reasons why they did that today, that's one of the reasons why the title of the show is Harbaugh to Chargers. The watch, the official watch is on. And if Jim Harbaugh goes to the Chargers, it's got to be Sharon Moore. Correct, Congo? It's got to be Sharon Moore, the offensive coordinator, new head coach in Michigan. It has to be. It has to, in my opinion. I think he's shown he is ready to take on a head coaching position in Ann Arbor. Give me a call, 763-260-1333. The phone lines are open. I'm checking on any reports. We are the watch is on. Harbaugh to Chargers. Do you think it's going to happen? When do you think it's going to happen, if it happens? And who does Michigan go to a national search, or is it Sharon Moore's job? Jim Harbaugh to the Falcons. David Shaw to Michigan would be shocking. I don't think that's what it means, Congo. I don't think that's what it means. It could, but I don't think so. We shall see. Caden's dad, early peak member.
Call from
Jamie Thornton.
Jamie Thornton, the floor is yours. Mrs. Razorback, what do you got to say?
The first thing I have to say, Greg, is we got 7 inches of snow. We got freezing rain this morning. It's been frigid Arctic air blast through another. We have another one coming tonight. Please come get your drunken Minnesota weather out of our area and take it home. Please.
Yeah.
Finish the child and tell it we don't want it down here. We're not supposed to have this.
Yeah, and you know, maybe people, I expect people know this, but, you know, we got all the snow trucks here, right? So when we get snowfall, we got 1 million of those things out in the highway and the streets. But a lot of states are not prepared for it. They don't have the salt trucks. They don't have the snow trucks. So yeah, I feel bad for you guys. It's terrible.
Well, you know, we're special down here. If you look it up on YouTube, you'll see there's actually somebody in Memphis that got a car hood and tied the rope to the back of another car, and they decided to go sledding on the interstate, and that was quite interesting. But yeah, we're not all that bright now. I heard the rumor is that the freezing rain this morning we had came from all those Alabama tears of everybody leaving the portal. So I don't know if that's true or not, Greg. I'm sorry, that was kind of a low blow for my friend from Alabama. My wife's the Husky over here. I think she's excited about the Huskies' new hire.
Yeah,
I told her, I said, I said the biggest thing's going to be hopefully they can keep him there. I don't know if that Florida job will come open and if he would go for it. I know he's mentioned that and talked about it, but that's a great job, the Washington job. I mean, obviously we know the rebuild that's happening. What a great year they've had.
Yeah.
But man, I'm telling you, with that rebuild and with Jed Fish coming in there, I'm really excited for them. I think he's going to be, he's obviously what he's done at Arizona doesn't get talked about enough. And I know it's gotten talked about a lot, but
it's too
my
bad
gosh.
that quarterback's not coming with them. Not from the Arizona perspective, from Washington perspective. The Fafita's a great college quarterback, but he's staying at Arizona, so.
Yeah, I mean, and it's, it's good for them, because it's one of the toughest things, I know for a coach to have to go through that. And I know a lot of people, and of course, Jason, he's great down there with Arizona as far as the writer goes. And he's been on, 365 and talked about the expansion, but that's tough, to lose your coach like that. And I know he's been always preaching loyalty, and it's good to see some of these players stay. That's one thing about the portal that I think all this, it's just a different world that a lot of people have to get used to now as far as college football. It's really not, it's not amateur sports anymore. And that's kind of like the whole money thing, just talking about you last night, I was blown away looking at that list. I didn't even think Arkansas would be that high, but it shows you, like you said, why these schools are all trying to get into the Big Ten or the SEC. Yeah. I mean, when you've got the top 25, 22 of them are SEC Big Ten schools as of July of this year. The other three, Clemson and FSU, they're going to end up in either the SEC or the Big Ten. And Notre Dame is Notre Dame, so they're always going to bring that kind of money in. But, it's like you said, these are numbers already before these new media deals even kick in. So what's it going to be like 5-10 years from now? And so, I don't know as far what I was thinking about this. I understand why the ACC is doing everything they're doing here, because they don't want to become the Pac-12, right? And obviously, even if they don't become the Pac-12, and you don't want to become so irrelevant that it becomes the Power 3, which is what very well could happen. So they have to try to do whatever they can to fight to try to keep as many schools from leaving as they can, because honestly, if the SEC says, okay, we're going to take North Carolina, we're going to take Virginia, and I think obviously they would want just those two. I don't think that would ever happen. I think they'll be forced to take 4. If 4 of those ACC schools leave for the SEC and 2 of them or more leave for the Big Ten, I mean, that's it for the ACC. Yeah. I mean, as far as relevance, you can sit there and you can add, Washington State and Oregon State and all that, but I'm sorry, you can't replace, your brand powers. You can't replace FSU, Clemson, and UNC and with Washington State and Oregon State and act like everything's okay. It's just not going to be. And when you look at these schools that are hurting financially, talking about like UCLA, and my God, Cal is even worse. If you want to talk about, you want to talk about schools with the money problems like that.
And then California's going to ACC, and they're not even going to get the full media money that the ACC's offering for many, many years. So they're coming in as a discount.
That's crazy, Greg. And then when you think about the travel costs, and I think it's going to be interesting. I know one of the things that the ACC has talked about, it's early on, but was trying to have a lot of games and stuff in SMU or in Dallas, like it's a neutral site to help save the cost. Not like football, but I'm talking about these Olympic sports. And I don't know how well that's going to play out, because, what do you do? I mean, the ACC is going to become the ACCC, the American Coastal, Coast to Coast Conference or something like that. It's either going to be that, or like you said, I agree with you so much on your video. I think it was yesterday you made one about, I think outside of the Big 12, the SEC, and the Big 10, we're going to start seeing smaller conferences. I think we're going to start seeing Frankenstein, and that part can't be emphasized enough. Yeah. Because even if, let's say, Washington State and Oregon State don't get a place, let's say the ACC fractures, right? The best thing you can do as far as putting a media deal together is making a Frankenstein conference. Let's say you take a Tulane and a Memphis, and you add Boise State and a UNLV and a Fresno State, whoever they are, right? Yeah. And just making it an 8-team conference. That's going to be your best bet, because it's going to cut down on travel. You're already going to have to be traveling across country anyway. So how things change. And remember, all these G5 conferences, let's say that happens and they become more, all these G5 conferences they're going to be fighting for one spot. in the college football playoffs because let's face it, the SEC and the Big Ten are going to get most of these. I mean, maybe on a good year, the Big 12 picks up an extra one on top of the conference champion, but I mean, you know, they're going to have one shot at it, and you're going to be fighting them for all these all these teams and schools for that spot. So, obviously, eyes are on the ACC now and see what goes on. Is ESPN? I really do feel like if the ACC loses FSU, Clemson, and UNC, I really do believe ESPN will opt out of that deal. You know, I kind of think of it as far as just a business decision. You've lost all your big brand power, and they've gotten their money's worth out of that deal. There is no doubt about it. When you think about how insane with prices and everything are, then they can just focus their attention on the SEC and the Big 12.
Or they might go back to some of those ACC schools, right, and just say, "Look, we want to redo the deal. We want to keep the ACC network, and so that's a possibility. But it would be a devalued conference, no question about it."
Right. So that's the big key is who leaves, how hard. I really do believe if you're Jim Phillips, so if you're in his shoes today, right, what are you doing for your conference to protect it? Well, you're going to try to fight all these people that's saying that these negotiations are going to be short and they're going to try to let Florida State out for next to nothing. I absolutely believe the opposite because I think they want to try to make it as hard as they can for schools like, say, obviously they know, right, UNC, Clemson, and FSU have the money to leave, but they're going to try to make it as hard as possible so schools like NC State, Virginia Tech, other schools, you know, they're like, hey, you know, we're going to try to stay and make something and keep this together with what we can. So that's just my opinion. I think the ACC has so much to lose. They're not gonna want to negotiate a deal. They're going to want to make it as hard. They're going to want to make Florida State pay as much as possible, and I think that's part of, like you said, what we saw yesterday that's going on there. So with this, you know, we don't want them part of the, you know, conversations and the meetings and so forth. But anyway, I hope everybody has a great 2024. Stay safe. My wife says, "Go Huskies." She would say it. She's got her thumb, she's got her hand pumped up in the air. She's still trying to recover from her flu, but
beautiful.
It's just interesting. Yeah, it's just interesting because it's just such big business now, right?
Yes, it is.
You just see the money that's being pumped in, man. So you guys take care and have a great one.
Thank you, Jamie. Great call once again by PATC Razorback. Great call. Ted Evans, Gold Dogs. Gold Dogs, Washington Huskies dog, that is. The Big Ten has a lot of alumni in the Bay Area. California, Stanford aren't in the Big Ten. Georgia Tech won't be in either. As Congo does correctly say, the Big Ten have more alumni in Atlanta, Georgia. If you check it, if you Google it, there's a Big Ten alumni club, a big one in Atlanta, Georgia. So if you're an alumni of a Big Ten university, you can be part of some club. I don't know what you do. I don't know if you go to the bars. Not sure what happens. Payson Cougar fan, the coaching carousel begins again. If Michigan hires a coach from another big school, it will have ripple effects throughout the P4 ranks and beyond. Great comment, Payson Cougar fan. Payson Cougar fan, great comment. I do think it's got to be Sharon Moore, the offensive coordinator. So if it's Sharon Moore, the carousel won't be kicking around, won't be spinning anymore. But if Michigan goes to a national search, yes, then you're going to be correct, Payson Cougar fan. If you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. Smash the like button. Get your notifications turned on. We could go on live at any time. If at 10 o'clock tonight, the word comes down that Jim Harbaugh has been hired as the new coach of the Chargers and Michigan is quickly going to hire Sharon Moore, we're going to be going live. We are going to be going live. So if you're new to the channel or if you haven't done so, subscribe to the channel. Please subscribe, smash the like button. Thank you so very much. If you want to become an early peak member, Cloak and Dagger member, all you got to do is go to the description box below the video. Hit the join button. There's a link in the description. Hit that link and we'll direct you to the join button. Early peak member, $4.99 a month. We drop in Cloak and Dagger information, membership only videos, episodes. Now we do a whole lot of episodes that everybody watches, right? We dropped one today, episode 361. We also dropped episode 16, Early Peak Cloak and Dagger. If you want to be a member, hit the join button. Okay, Caden's dad. That's why the ACC needs to negotiate with Florida State, set a high enough exit settlement that only a few can afford to leave, that there's enough money to keep others. Yes, a high enough number that Florida State will pay out, that maybe a couple others will pay out, but keep the other in, because these other schools are going to have to evaluate. Am I going to pay the $300 million, $200 million, $350 million, $400, whatever that number is, and spend that money and then jump to the Big 12? Probably not, right? Probably not. So it's got to be a high enough number. This is all probably going to go down to a settlement. Where is that number going to be? What do you think? I'm going to have, on the next live show, I'm going to have to do some polling on that. I'm going to have to do some big time polling. Got to figure out where the PATC community, where you guys are thinking, where that number is going to be. I'm going to be doing some comparison. I'm going to be doing some yes or no poll questions. 200 million versus 300 million. We're going to figure out where the PATC community is thinking when it comes to what is the number that you think Florida State is going to have to pay out to get out of the grant of rights, to get cleared of the grant of rights. Coy, thank you so much for your incredible generosity to this channel once again. Holy smokes. Coy, you're gifted 5 memberships, Cloak and Dagger. Holy smokes. You, sir, once again are knighted, Cloak and Dagger knighted. Thank you so very much. And those in the chat, get yourself to where you can pick up those memberships that were just gifted by Coy. Holy smokes. AAR, Sky, right of the line, the architect, and Ashton Wilson. Thank you so much. You all are now Cloak and Dagger knighted. Holy smokes. And for those who do not know what that means, to have a membership, you can go to our YouTube channel, look for those membership only videos. They're going to be coming out once or twice a week. We just started them, giving you the early information on some stuff that is brewing in all college football. We just got it going. We already got a whole mess of memberships. It's a beautiful thing. I appreciate it, Coy. Thank you so much for your generosity, not only to this channel, but to everybody, the 5 that you just gifted. You've done it before. You've done it again. Thank you so much, Coy. Unbelievable generosity. Wilson, Michigan Wolverines, is now an early peak member. Sky's an early peak member. Thank you so much, Coy. Very, very generous. Holy smokes. Jamie Thornton, I think it's going to be high, no less than 200 million. Congress is 100 to 250. Steve thinks 200 million is the max. Stephen McNeely, 200 to 250. I'm going to figure out a way, possibly late tonight, early tomorrow morning. I'm going to figure out how to, I'm going to put up some poll questions. The next live show, which is probably going to be tomorrow. And we're going to figure out, how, I'm going to figure out what is that consensus number throughout the PATC community. Okay? We're going to figure it out. And then we'll see how correct the PATC community is. Just checking to see here. The Polynesian Bowl is going to happen this weekend. Some great high school players. Austin Mack. I kept hearing this name through the whole season. He's going to be the next quarterback of Washington. He goes in the portal. Austin Mack goes into the portal to follow Coach Kalen DeBoer, Ryan Grubb, Austin Mack. Going to be what? Second string, third string quarterback of Alabama? Very interesting. Austin Mack feeling confident enough. Not only is he feeling confident enough on what Kalen DeBoer and Grubb thinks about him, but Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb and Kalen DeBoer thinking enough of Austin Mack to say, yeah, come on, take one of the 85 scholarship spots at Alabama. We see enough value in you. We see enough growth in you. We see enough high enough ceiling in you, Mr. Austin Mack. Come on down to Tuscaloosa. Very interesting. Very interesting. AAR can't be 575 million. Ted Evans says, bye, Felicia. Ted Evans is not an Austin Mack fan anymore. Rock and Rant, it's no way as high as people think. You can't owe money for media rights that haven't been exercised after 2027. You make a great point, Rock and Rant. You make a great point. Summit Hawk says the ACC will get roasted in court. So they accept 100 million? Ooh, it's got to be more than 100 million, right? Right? Wrong? I'm probably wrong. Okay, we're going to wrap it up for this live show. It's more of a fun live show tonight. It's the Jim Harbaugh Watch. It's official. It has started. Harbaugh to the Chargers. It started. We'll see how long it takes. Harbaugh to the Chargers, that's the chalk. It's the chalk in Vegas. Chargers have satisfied the Rooney Rule as of this afternoon. It looks like they're hiring, or I should not say that. They interviewed a general manager that Jim Harbaugh would be interested in working for, Mr. Ed Dobbs. So we'll see what happens. We're expecting tomorrow, Friday, could be a very busy day, so keep your head on a swivel here at Peek Around the Corner. We continue to follow every single story that's out there. We talked about the Charlie Bakers, very bad day today. And of course, the Jim Harbaugh Watch, all the portal moves, everything that's going on. Holy smokes. Talking about holy smokes, the Holy Smokes Theater, Washington State and Oregon State went through the auditorium doors. They're sitting in row 35. We're still waiting for Clemson to pull the trigger. We'll see what happens. Tomorrow is January 19th. Going to be very interesting next 3 weeks because there's a window there. We'll talk about it more on the next live show. If you're new to the channel, before you leave, smash that like button. It helps us so much with YouTube, the algorithm of YouTube, so very much. And please subscribe to the channel if you have yet to subscribe. So very important. We thank you for the wonderful comments, for the incredible phone calls, for the generous donations. Holy smokes. Thank you so very much. Until next time. From all of us at PATC to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.